sounds like a Nintendo Direct snap.
Yeah, it was actually, yeah.
I might leave that in. And now we're synced.
All right, so
Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Late to the Game channel. I'm Ellie, and you can find me at Elementally on everything. And with me, as always, I have...
Ned Kelly Gamer.
Yay! Or just Ned, as his non-government name. So, without any startup or lead up into this at all, let's get right to it. What have you been playing lately?
So I didn't tell you what I've been playing lately, so this was a surprise. Yeah,
Ooh.
I've been playing some Call of Duty.
What?
Black Ops.
Like the campaign or
the campaign?
Okay.
Yeah, I can't fit, as I was talking about last week. I can't fit another multiplayer shooter into
No,
my life.
that's fair.
Fortnite is it. But no, PS Plus this month released.
Oh, that's right.
Call of Duty Black Ops. Oh, it's the Russian one. Anyway. So I like a little bit of Call of Duty campaign. I played the Call of Duty World War II. I mean, I used to play all of the Medal of Honor games years ago. Love the soundtracks of them. Constantly play them on my CD man, Discman. Not CD,
I was like
man.
CD man. I
CD
don't know
man.
what that is.
Discman. I absolutely love them. And so I've played a lot of Call of Duty campaigns. We don't talk about it much because it's not your genre.
No.
Yes, at least anyway. I think we can get you into a little bit of first-person shooter, but yeah, I mean, it's like a Steven Seagal 80s movie.
Okay.
You know, which, if that's what you're in the mood for,
Sure.
if you know that that's what you're going in for,
No,
it
that's
can be
fair.
a lot of fun.
I can see the merit in these these kinds of games. I just don't love a first-person shooter myself.
Well, I really like this because there's a huge... Maybe it's because I've been playing a lot of Fortnite recently, and
It sounded like you didn't want to confess that.
Fortnite recently. But like, for anyone that's played Fortnite on any console, you'll know there's not much weight behind what you're doing. Particularly, when you're playing on PS5 and you're used to all these haptics and like it feels like like you're really doing something. There doesn't feel like any weight behind what you're doing in Fortnite. So, moving to Call of Duty recently, it's just felt like such like when you fire a shotgun,
I mean,
it really feels.
If there's
like
a game that's perfected the FPS experience, it's going to be Call of Duty.
It's
They've been doing it for
beautiful
like
too.
20 years.
We don't talk enough about how beautiful the Call of Duty games are.
That's fair. Yeah, no, because they are gorgeous from all the things that I've seen. They're just never my cup of tea.
Yeah, and like there's a whole intriguing plot. You know, with Black Ops, you can imagine it's going to have an intriguing plot. But what I noticed was sort of the last couple of spoilers for anyone that hasn't played, and I haven't finished it yet myself either.
If it's PS Plus,
it's probably been out a year or so.
Yeah,
it's relatively new, but the very end of it is kind of like a Stanley Parable sort of vibe where you repeat on loop a number.
Is there like a perfect way to complete it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into spoil for anyone that maybe skip ahead like 2 minutes here for anyone.
Oh,
that
2 minutes is what we're about to get on this.
But because it's Black Ops, right? There's a lot of memory stuff going on where people have messed with your memory, and you find out that you're not really you. That the memories that you've been thinking about were someone else's, and so you're on loop.
That's pretty cool.
And
actually.
so it has you doing the same thing, and he's got like, and he's telling you what you should be remembering, but you can fight against them and go, no, this is not what I did. And it's kind of, it's not as clever as Stanley Parable, but it feels like it was influenced by it.
Cool.
And there's a medal trophy.
There's a medal for it. They send it to your house.
There's a trophy for doing the everything that he says not to do. Of course, there should be.
Right.
Should get a trophy for doing that. But yeah, it's been really interesting. Really good shooter. The kids have loved watching me play it.
When have you had time for this?
Probably an hour in the evening, once every couple of days. So it's not
because
really
I had no idea.
But campaigns are short. Like Call of Duty campaigns, I reckon that by the time this is finished, it might be like 6 hours. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm nowhere near the end, and people are listening to this going.
People are like, no, he's got
man,
20 hours left.
You're in the prologue, But really enjoying it. And again, late to the game. It's definitely out about a year or so. But yeah, highly recommend it for anyone that just wants a simple campaign. I will not be playing the multiplayer. I've absolutely no interest.
So don't
in it.
invite him.
So don't invite me. But no, the campaign's fun if anyone wants. And the appeal for this was that I'm just looking for things that I can finish in 5 to 6 hours.
No, that makes sense. That's a very appealing
that's exactly
quality
what I
for
want
a
in my
lot of
life
games.
right now. So yeah. So what about you? What have you been playing? And I know we're going to get to Final Fantasy 16. We
Yes,
said that
that
last
is a
week
recurring
too.
segment.
Well, apart from that, what have you been playing?
So, other than Final Fantasy 16, like we've said, I have been actually playing Uncharted Lost Legacy. So, Chloe and Nadine's story, which I like to think is Uncharted the daddy issues essentials. And I'm into it. I'm really, really into it. I completely dissociated from all of real life, I think yesterday, and played probably about like 5 hours just sitting down. I just sat down and lost 5 hours of my life, but like happily. And I mean, it just like Uncharted is just, they have got the right ingredients somehow. Like every single one of those games is just perfectly poised between like making you feel like you're smarter than you are, because the puzzles are not actually that difficult, but they're very rewarding. And then the and like all the combat stuff is like, it's so easy, like in comparison to so many other like shooter games, like it's hard to lose, you know. And like the climbing ability is absolute madness. Yeah, like no human could ever accomplish it.
The early Uncharted games kind of were famous for designing themselves around only letting you fail a couple of times.
Right, yeah. You told me about that mechanic and I had no idea. So for anyone who doesn't know, there is a mechanic in Uncharted where if you fail so many times, the game automatically makes it like a step easier for you. And like, I mean, do you know more about the mechanics?
I don't.
And
now that we're putting this on YouTube, I feel I'm sure that I did read that somewhere.
Maybe we're just making it up, and it's all in our heads.
I'm almost certain that I'm not making that up, though.
No, I don't think you are.
I believe that is,
because I think there have been times where I was playing the game. Specifically, there was like one Yeti fight that I remember, like the first time that you meet the Yetis, in that like ice cavern. And you think you're being chased by wolves, but it's actually a Yeti that comes out and gets you and eventually Tenzin saves you, as he is wont to do. But I remember I was so scared. I was such a wuss about these that and I was streaming it at the time. So stream brain is like, I don't know, the gaming equivalent to like mommy brain. And I just could not handle the stress of all things coming at me in that moment. And I remember I died to this one Yeti in this little icy arena so many times. And then eventually it was like one hit that I had trained myself to remember was coming, and one of the cutscenes wasn't there. And I was like, they did make it easier. Yeah, because it wasn't that I got better.
If you had failed like one more time, it would have just laid down and just like...
The Yeti would have been like, please leave.
Just step over me.
I'm tired. But yeah, so I've been playing Lost Legacy.
So big question for you then. Yes. Can Chloe potentially... Because there's going to be an Uncharted 5, right? I mean, like, let's assume...
Is that not... Or do you...
Well, no, they haven't.
Lost Legacy
it's not
isn't
considered 5. No,
okay.
It's kind of like a Miles Morales kind of. It's not DLC. It is its own independent game, but it's not like a numbered one. They've said that Nathan Drake's story is over, but Naughty Dog knows there's massive money to be made from Uncharted. Can Chloe be the protagonist? Can she replace Nathan Drake?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think she's done it already in Lost Legacy.
I think so too.
Because like she is super, super charming. She's got all the climbing abilities. She's got the prowess. She's got the knowledge. Like she already has done her part in replacing him. But I think it'd be more interesting if we like had, I don't know, Nathan's and Elena's daughter or something.
Oh, see,
like
okay, interesting.
I think like that legacy could be really cool to follow up on. You know,
the legacy that hasn't been lost. No, because that's what people have mentioned, right? It's like, oh well, it's going to be Nathan's daughter, but
or we do a prequel and we follow Sully.
That I'm into.
Yeah.
that I'm really
I
into.
love Sully
Mhm.
so much, and I would kill to have more game time with him. Find out how he got to be so debonair and charming, but still so like down to earth and like
I mean,
lovely.
we're not talking Mark Wahlberg.
Absolutely not. We are not Mark Wahlberg stans. I don't give a shit about Marky Mark. I think he is one of the worst actors of all time. But that's for another day. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm really, really enjoying Lost Legacy. I think I think the puzzles in it are really fun. The thing that I lost like a solid chunk of time to, I say lost, I willingly gave a solid chunk of time to, was the puzzle where you find like, it's just like a map that you collect tokens and put them into it. Did you do that part?
Yeah, I've played it through twice. Once myself and once with Ryan. Yes, I'm sure that I did.
Well, so it's basically one of the things that I found, like, because I don't want to just be like, oh my God, games are amazing, right? And that's our podcast. But one of the things that I found really interesting about Lost Legacy was the way it presents side questing, because it doesn't really feel like a side quest. Like, it felt to me where it's like, take it or leave it, but probably should do it.
So this is when they're in the car driving around.
Yeah, there are 11 locations where for you to pick up. For you to solve a number of different puzzles, which, by the way, the inventiveness of all those puzzles was great. But for you to solve a number of puzzles, to then you are rewarded with a token. And once you collect all of those, you go back to the original area, deposit all of the tokens, and then you get a bracelet that was one of the ancient queens, one of the Hoysala queens. And then you get... And then it's like it's a beacon for whenever you're near treasure. Like, it goes off so that you collect all the treasure.
I never did that.
It's so good. It's so good and so worth the time. And like, I don't know, I'm more acquainted with this map than I ever would have been if I would have just gone straight through to the next story beat, you know? And so I got to actually just like drive around this like Indian jungle. I don't know. It looks to me how I would imagine it is in India. But it looks how I would imagine like Mesopotamia for some reason.
Because I always get confused between that. In Uncharted 4, you have a similar level,
it's
right?
It's very similar, yeah.
But you're in Madagascar.
Yes.
For that. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So it is very reminiscent of that. And I think they kind of were just like, you know what? Copy paste in a lot of ways. And I'm into it because they gave you so much more to do with this copy paste version.
We've talked about this before. I'm sure it'll be a main topic for the show at some point. But I want developers to copy and paste. Use your assets. You spend so long developing these assets. Reuse them.
Yeah.
Give me more story. Give me more reasons to play in these little arenas.
Do you remember whenever Ragnarok was about to come out and they had released one of the amazing trailers that they released, and someone was like, oh my God, they used the same boat mechanic, and it was like Kratos jumping into the boat, and it was like, fuck off. Like, of course they did. That's like one of the most, like, I don't know, legendary ways to travel in a boat and gaming. Like
I'm a
copy paste. We want it.
Yeah, but plus it's meant to be Kratos like a couple of years later. It's like, how different is it going to look?
How differently do you need to get into a boat?
If it saves 10 developers having to work overtime for like 3 months to like,
for something
just
that
give me the same animation. It's
and
fine.
They gave us a new animation within the boat stuff as well, like his little like canoe shit where you drop down.
There's a lot of Uncharted 4's assets reused for Lost Legacy.
Yeah.
Please, like, developers, if you need to cash out on, like, make more money, make some profit on the work that you've already done, please do it.
Please.
We want it.
We love it.
Gamers want it.
There's a reason.
Don't listen to like games media and
that's also another,
who always want new things and are like tired and over games most of the time.
We are not over it, and we love the things that you've created.
We can barely get around to things.
Yeah,
to playing games.
late to the game are your stands.
Yeah, totally. Reuse those assets.
But
cool.
I think that'll be our pin in the conversation for what we've been playing.
Yeah.
Because we have something else pressing to talk about. So, my dearest Ned, would you like to begin by telling me your toxic gaming traits?
Oh, toxic gaming traits. Yeah, you asked me to think about these earlier on.
I have a couple for him.
I texted Ellie back and said, I don't have any. I'm fine. I don't have any.
And I have a couple for you.
For me, okay. I do have one for me.
I would like
but,
you to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
I find it really hard to play games if I don't get PS trophies first.
Oh,
Like playing Zelda seems like a complete waste of time to me.
that's so funny. Is there no reward system at all with Nintendo?
On Nintendo, no, I don't think so. There is on Xbox.
Yeah.
There's achievements, and they basically match one for one with trophies. There is for Steam, of course, as well. But even if I had an Xbox, or if I had if I played more regularly on Steam, I still think I'd purposely buy it on PlayStation.
Nah,
or want to play it there.
I think once the little jingle went off on any of them, you'd be like, serotonin.
I don't know. I want to kind of invest into that trophy, but it is a
You are a
it is a
collector.
problem, yeah, because I really want to play Octopath Traveler 2.
Yes.
Well, I want to play the first one first. I haven't got around to the first one either. I'm late to it. But I want to play Octopath Traveler 2, and I think it's the perfect game for playing when you're around and about, like when you're traveling.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know, we do that a lot.
Yes, but I don't want to play that on the Switch because I won't get any trophies for it.
That is a
so it
toxic
makes it
trait.
really difficult.
That's terrible.
Yeah,
that is terrible.
That is
if
toxic.
it's suited to the situation, far more. But
totally,
you're just
and
like,
it's the same game. It's the same experience. It's like I'm consuming the same piece of art,
But
right?
I think it's also important to note that sure, shiny new trophies, great, but you are not a platinum hunter at all.
No, but
how many platinums do you have?
17.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean that's a decent amount.
It's a decent
but
amount,
it's certainly
but I'm not a
like
hunter,
every
no.
game.
But I like the idea that I could be.
The possibilities, the potential.
I think
of
there's a life in which I am a trophy hunter.
a life where there's no children.
No children, less work. Yeah, there's a life where I do actually. And I think I'm inclined towards wanting those trophies and wanting the platinums.
So, question: if you had a Steam Deck and you could get it on Steam,
would I invest into Steam achievements and so
Yeah.
on? Maybe,
because it has the
Maybe.
versatility of the Switch.
they're not as shiny though. I mean,
No.
the UI in Steam generally just isn't
Well,
the most appealing.
it's canonically one of the most chaotic
Right.
apps,
And
I
why,
don't think they should ever change. To be honest, I like that it is absolute fucking nonsense on there.
But that's why I think the Steam achievements wouldn't quite do it for me. I think I want the shinies.
The shinies.
The shinies.
Shiny.
Okay, so you starting with your toxic trait now, and then I'll name yours, and you name mine. Right?
Okay. That's the method we'll go into.
I have a feeling that yours might also be mine for you too.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so I'll lead up to the bigger one. Further in the discussion because it needs time for me to confess it because I actually believe that one is toxic. So the first one, and I think this is one that will be in our Venn diagram for what you and I both identify as a toxic trait of mine in gaming. I refuse to look up guides until
Ding ding ding.
I refuse to look them up until I get to a point where it's like, if I don't figure this out the next time, I'm going to quit the game. And so if the next time I don't figure it out, then I'm like, all right, I'll just Google it. But
You let yourself get to that point though.
It depends on the game. If I care a lot about the game, I want to figure it out.
Right.
If I don't care as much, then I'm like, oh, fine, I'll just look it up. But I have a thing where, and maybe for rightly or wrongly, I feel like a game should supply me with the tools to figure out the thing they're putting in front of me.
Right.
And if they haven't, if I need a guide to figure it out, I think they failed me in some way, And so sometimes I get a little frustrated and I get upset and I'd rather quit the game than looking up a guide for it. But more often than not, I look up the guide and I'm like, that is how you do it. And then I'm, irate for that reason.
No, I totally get it. I think I have a general rule of thumb for myself with this stuff. I have less tolerance than you for puzzles generally.
Oh, okay.
But if it's a puzzle game, you shouldn't be looking up.
Yeah.
There's
if that's
no
the
excuse.
main mechanic,
yeah,
then
exactly.
they should do better.
But if it's a game that just throws a puzzle in, a good example would be, not that they were particularly hard, right, but Spider-Man had these puzzles.
Okay, I haven't played Spider-Man yet.
I didn't buy this game for these puzzles. It's like, just no.
Yeah, to be fair, the second you said Spider-Man, I was like, why would they have puzzles in that game?
Because
he's
a genius too, and he has to figure
I
things out.
know, but the game is about swinging and fighting.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, people are probably going, oh, man, they weren't difficult. I get it. It's just the only example that I can think of right now.
Okay.
It's a game that has puzzles in it, but no one really bought it for the puzzles, right?
Right, okay.
In that case, no tolerance. Like, if I can get it, like, if I don't get it within, like, a few moments.
Oh, I have a really good example.
I'm looking it up.
I have a really good example of a time where you didn't have tolerance for puzzles.
Oh, it's God of War Ragnarok. Yeah. Those puzzles were really good, but there was definitely one. I was like, just look it up for me.
Well, no, the other one. So we played. I took time off work to play Ragnarok. And we'll dedicate probably an entire episode to our feelings about Ragnarok because we probably spent as much time talking about it personally as we did playing it. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a time where I had played, I don't know, probably like 10 hours ahead of Ned. And then he got to one of the puzzles that I forced him to do because I was like, this one would be funny to watch him do. And then he got so frustrated that he actually had to give over the controls to me. And I had to do this puzzle for him because he was like, I need to leave. I was like, I can't do this. And for what it's worth, I could not possibly tell you what it is called, but it is the one where I think it's whenever you exit, you have to fight the librarian. So you have to do the chaining arrows.
Yeah, it's throwing
it's chaining and it's really specific timing. And Ned just couldn't hack it and was so mad. And so that was one of the times where I learned that, like, okay, he has a threshold.
Yeah.
And it is shorter. It's smaller than mine.
I think it's an example of a game though. I didn't particularly buy it for the puzzles. And like those puzzles
Ragnarok is puzzly.
It does have some
like
good
God
puzzles.
of War 2018 and Ragnarok are puzzly. Mm-hmm. Like if you do the extra stuff.
But like, okay, I think it's a really good example of like this whole late to the game community, right? We all have so little time. And puzzles sometimes just require you to reflect, maybe walk away, think about it, come back.
I think this is one of your other toxic traits.
I'm in a hurry.
Yeah,
because I don't think I'm naturally like that, but with gaming I am. Which
is hilarious because whenever we first met many a year ago, we played World of Warcraft together. And he was like, oh, did you know I used to be called the Patient? Yeah. Because I would teach other players how to play. Patient. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, so he used to be a guide. He used to be so patient.
I have been a teacher in parts of my life, so.
And you still are.
So. Yeah. Well, that was my toxic trait for you. So we have discussed.
All right, so we've got the Venn diagram on that one. What's yours?
Well, no, what's yours for me?
Yes. So I have 2 for you.
All right. I only asked for 1.
So, one of the things that I love about games, and again, this speaks to our patience level, I think. I am just obsessed with the environments that game dev people create, game developers, if you will. I'm absolutely obsessed with looking at every single detail. I spend a lot of time in photo mode. Like, I want to know how it's made. I want to know what it lends to the story and all of these things. Even that notwithstanding, even if I'm in a hurry, I don't sprint every single place that I go to. Like, there have been so many times, and it would be different if Ned caught everything that he needed to catch whenever he sprinted through an environment. But the amount of times that I have watched you play a game and you've been like, I just don't know where to go. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's because you're sprinting around manically rather than taking a second and noticing that there is an alternative path.
I mean,
that is a toxic trait.
Yes, I do tend to run a little bit faster in games.
No, he's always full tilt. It's always L3 or full tilt on the joystick.
I don't have time to waste.
But you do. You're playing a game. You do.
No, I need to get through games. I do tend to run, but I counter it. I counter that with what I'm sure you're going to say my next toxic trait is.
Yes.
I have a better use of my right stick.
It's not a better use.
It is a better. It
Not
makes her.
in
It
the
makes her sick.
slightest.
It makes her sick, but it is a better use. I
But
see
it's-
everything that I need to do.
But you
So I'm running
don't-
around and I'm using more of the right stick than
No,
any.
absolutely not.
I want to check who has more treasures in Uncharted before. So for the next podcast, we're going to check who has more treasures in treasures in Uncharted.
Oh my
Because I think that
gosh.
will tell us who actually misses more than the other. I run, but I use my right stick.
But he always misses the things he needs to do, and then he's just then you get like I think this is the thing. So like you sprint through, and then you have the audacity to be frustrated if you don't know what you need to do next. Like that is something like that laugh shows that I'm telling the truth here, because like he will just run through and he's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know why it's not clear. And it's like, well, maybe if you chilled
These
out,
damn developers.
like chill out for half a second and you would see what you need to see.
I probably do need to slow down. It's probably part of what something I need to get better at in life generally is just slowing down a little bit. It might help with my anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay, well we've named one for me, then we named one for you, then you named one for me, but you had already said
I
one.
can volunteer another one for
Yeah,
myself
you're gonna
if
have
you
to do
don't
that
if you don't have another.
because that was my one for you.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is one, like, I mean, tongue in cheek is the phrase toxic gaming trait, because we're not like telling 12-year-olds they need to like go to bed and like on Fortnite, like that's not the kind of thing that is toxic. But this one, it's not toxic to anyone else, but I think it probably would hurt the heart of a lot of gamers. Being late to the game, I'm oversaturated with choice. There are so many games that I can play at any given moment that I think I probably don't treat them as like special flowers as I should,
Okay.
And so I have a habit of finishing a game, that is quote unquote for audio listeners, before the game is actually done.
So, do you mean just not finishing games?
Yeah.
Finishing a game.
But no, I chose that phrasing specifically. I have something in me where I can find fulfillment from a gameplay before finishing it. And so sometimes I'm like, this was great. And then I don't play it again.
So, that is the least toxic.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna make a counter argument here that is
Generous.
one of the best parts of how you play games, because I think more of us should just quit when we're not having fun anymore.
But I don't quit. I don't quit when I'm not having fun. I quit when I've had peak fun, and I'm like, this was great.
I see.
And then I don't come back to it.
And then you're done.
Prime example, and I did eventually finish this
But
game.
you also you also quit when you're just
yeah,
like,
if I'm
this
not
isn't
having fun, I absolutely
Now,
quit.
can I ask you a quick question? I know you want to get smart, but would you do the same thing with a book? Because I think you need to.
No.
Yeah, see.
I'm very bad for that. I have gotten better,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm generally not a quitter when it comes to books.
I think you need to.
I think so too.
Podcaster that I listened to, John Lovett, said one of his
Love it.
New Year's
Sorry,
resolutions
wait,
was not to.
Wait.
Yes.
You just called John Lovett a podcaster only.
Well, I mean, now he's
White
that's how
House writer for President Obama, and you were like, podcaster,
well,
John Lovett.
That's what he is now, crooked
Okay.
media.
Go on. John
anyway,
Lovett. John Lovett thoroughly disgraced, but now go on. What did he say about books?
I'll get to it. He was saying that one of his New Year's resolutions was not to finish more books this year. It was
that's very John Lovett
was to
of him.
start more books this year. And I thought that was really clever. It's like, actually, yeah, because if you constantly hold yourself to this bar
Right.
of having to finish all books, then you're always going to like fail and finish that, like feel that because I didn't like this book, then I didn't finish it, and then it just like there's this backlog. It's like, no, start more books. I think we should do that more with games. I think we should start more games and finish the ones we want to finish and quit the ones we want to quit.
You know what's hilarious?
What?
Not even 48 hours ago, I finished a book I didn't like. I was reading a book that was like this, meant to be like this cool fantasy spin-off of like the Romanovs, and like, I don't know, I could just tell like the writer had a lot of bodice ripper background in her, and like I think it would have been different if it wasn't historical fiction. Like if it was a totally made up place, then I would have been like, okay, I can understand why this is so fucking easy to get out of, but
bodice ripper games are something that we need to make a main topic about. Make no,
Are there
please.
any? I don't think I
No,
know
but we
of
need
any.
we need to talk about what they would look like.
Okay. Porn?
But yes, I think yes. I do think that you are. This isn't a toxic trait. I'm going to say, and you can let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Is this a toxic trait? I don't believe that it is.
I will further elaborate on why I think it is probably toxic, because it tends to be with like very, very good games sometimes. Sometimes it's games that like highly acclaimed, but I have very serious issues with. For instance, like, and actually the examples I'm going to give are examples that I've gone back and finished, but Horizon Zero Dawn, the first time that I played that game, it just did not take. And that is because, like, for a variety of reasons, but mostly that, like, I don't believe open world RPGs should exist if your side quests are shit, and all of Horizon Zero Dawn's side quests are garbage. Like, they're bad.
Yeah.
And there was, like, I don't know, like, in a stealth game, I don't think that, like, dialogue should loop as quickly as it does. Because there's one specific quest I can think of in the beginning of the game where you have to rescue like some random villager who climbed up to a lookout post because she got surrounded by a flock of watchers. Mm-hmm. And then when you go up to it, it's a fucking stealth game. So of course I'm going to take my time and scope out the area and be like, okay, this is how I'm going to methodically take these out. But while I was doing that, I literally had to take my headphones out at one point. While I was doing that, she was like, hey, I'm up here. Help. I'm up here. And I was like, for the love of God, I will set you on fire myself. Well, I will leave you to the watchers.
Even Aloy repeats herself on loop constantly. Yeah. Like, I guess I should go quiet here.
Aloy was like such an alarmist as well. Like, she was such an alarmist. I remember the amount of times that I like slid down a hill and she was like, so much for going quietly. And I was like, we are 100 meters away. Like, and it wasn't because I'm like courageous as a stealth player.
Absolutely
I am
not.
such a wuss. That might be a different toxic trait, but I'm such a wuss when I'm in a stealth game position because I'm like, okay, I am weaker than most of the enemies. You try to play non-stealth
games as stealth games.
I'm anti-confrontational. But that's one example of a game that I just, it didn't take. And I was like, you know what? It's okay. The combat is pretty cool, but it's not for me. Like, it's not, like, the pleasure part of it is not outweighing how difficult and or annoying I'm finding it.
However, we did finish that game.
We did, eventually, and I
hated
really the ending.
You were really annoyed about having to hand over the controller to me.
I hated the ending, yeah. But in reference to a game that I absolutely adored, but just, quote-unquote, finished early, I did eventually go back to play the rest of it, but probably like 6 months later, was Disco Elysium.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You took a long break.
I think Disco Elysium is like maybe one of the most brilliant games that's like ever existed, to be honest. And for OG listeners, I did an episode where I primarily talked about Disco Elysium with my narrative design, like gaming narrative design professor. And I had like...
Oh, back in the day when you had guests that actually knew what they were talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had Owen on and we spoke about the game at length. And I was like, I just feel so fulfilled by this game. I feel like I've gotten so much out of it. I've had a conversation at length about it. And if you want to hear that conversation, wait till the end of this episode and then go watch that on YouTube. And, you know, absolutely adored the game, thought it was so brilliant for so many reasons, and then just stopped playing. I stopped playing at like 35 hours, and then the next time that I came back to it, about 6 months later, I was like, you know what, maybe I will pick this up, maybe I will finish out this mission. I want to know what Harry's life pans out to be. And then I played probably another 35 hours. Like, I put a lot of time into that game because I was like, I need to hear every piece of writing that these people did for it because they are so much smarter than I am.
I stand over this particular trait of yours, like for Horizon Zero Dawn, for Disco Elysium. We're like, this whole community is built on people that like, we have limited amount of time, you know, like move on when you want to move on. And I do think that
but there are some games you can't come back to. you know?
Yeah, well,
Like
that
there
is
are
true.
some games, if you pour 40 hours into it, you cannot start
Well,
again
I
in 6
wouldn't
months.
have been able to go back to Disco Elysium after
No?
the same amount of time. No, but my memory for things like that just isn't as good as yours. I wouldn't have felt connected to the world.
Okay.
I think you've got a better retention for sort of what was happening in
Maybe
the
it's
plot
because I
and the
slow down
characters.
when I'm walking. I take it all in.
Well, you can't run around in Disco.
I know. He is slow. I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
There's-
but
oh.
it is a positive trait for the late to the game community. We will not hear anything else.
Well, thank you. That's very gracious
Yeah.
of you, because that was one that I thought I was going to get reamed for. Because those are two examples of games that I eventually went back and finished. There are, oh my God, myriad games that I never finished and probably never will, you know? Not because I had a bad time. For instance, Last Guardian. Loved that game. Didn't finish it. Probably won't.
Yeah.
You know? Thought it was great. I can
haven't
see
finished it.
I can see the ending. And I don't want to play it. Like,
Do we know that?
I mean, I'm
No,
not gonna-
guessing. Yeah,
I mean,
don't put
it's
anything
like
in the
it's like
comments.
yeah, don't spoil me, because I will take offense to that. That's the toxic thing. I find I define everything as a spoiler.
Oh, that's true. So
And that's in every genre,
Yeah.
not just games.
like letting her know the general concept of what the story is about.
It's too much. If I don't know it, it's a spoiler.
Yeah.
I remember,
that is a toxic trait.
one time we there was like a historical fiction thing that we were into, and I didn't know what the history it was basing itself on, and Ned was telling me about it, and I was like, hey, spoiler, and he was like, it's history.
That is a line that I will not accept.
But like, I didn't know it, so it feels like a spoiler. But yeah, that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, for sure.
So, do you have any more for me?
No, I think that's it. I'm sure I'll think of a ton of them as we play over the next while, but maybe we can revisit this in a few months' time.
Okay, so as a little ending cap off, let's talk about Final Fantasy 16 as promised at the top.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts and feelings at the moment?
Well, straight after we finished last week,
Yes, we went and played more.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Had we reached the part where he got a new costume?
Yes.
So it was after that.
It was
part
after that, but before
that we've been
Ramu.
playing. It feels like the world's after opening up really a lot at this point. We're after meeting new characters that we can go and kind of explore the politics of the world. I want to understand the politics
Yeah,
of
that's
the
the
world
thing.
a lot more.
We've now jumped ahead 13 years.
It's another 5 years.
Was it that?
It was 13 years the first time, from teenager to.
Oh yes,
and now it's another 5 years.
Yeah,
and now
so
we're called
we're at the new
the Cid.
Yeah, we're Sid now, but we're at the new headquarters. We have Ramu's powers. We fought the
Ultimate.
Ultima. Yeah, he had a different name during the battle, but yeah, Ultima is the thing. So Joshua is on our side, and he saved us. Was like killer Phoenix, like so rad.
But
And I've got theories on what I think his power is, but and how we have a little tiny morsel of it. But what were you gonna say?
well, it's been established that since he saved us, we haven't seen him since then.
Yeah, which is
So
wild.
they're
But
like,
we hold
I
on
know
to his
it was
little
Joshua
glittering
that I seen
Phoenix.
that night. And we haven't seen him since.
Yeah.
So looking forward to finding out what Joshua is up to.
Mm.
I don't feel like we've played that much more since then. But one of the things I wanted to
We
kind of
did one of the
revisit
first
from last
missions
week was that
And side quests.
I would like to have a little bit more. Maybe it's going to open up a bit more. I'd like to have a little bit more information and context to all of these scenes that we're seeing in between gameplay, which is just like meanwhile, like Batman, right? And meanwhile, and you're seeing these little political sort of like geopolitical moments where there's a battle or there's a king talking or the emperor that's kind of taking over his
Right.
Congress. I want to see more about that. Like, is this all going to tie together? I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
But it feels like I'm waiting a long time to get the context of how all of this ties together. It feels like I'd like that a little bit sooner than I'm getting it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I feel like I can find a rationale for that, to be honest, though. Like, one, we're losing a bit of the pacing because we have to play it like sparingly enough. You know, whenever we do play, we play several hours at a time, but we're not playing it like we're losing a bit of momentum. in how frequently we get to play it. So I feel like it probably feels longer than it actually is in game time. But I think as well, we can't get into the thick of all of that stuff until we have like communed and or defeated enough of the icons.
The icons, yeah.
Because we need to collect more of their powers. We're at 4 out of what I think will be 9, I think we said. And so that's something that I think it'll open up a little bit more after that. One of the things that I want to talk about being incredibly clever, though, we did a bit of side questing, because this game, like, it's not a normal RPG in the sense that you just, the whole world is open to you at any given time. It's very much on rails, and then there are moments where it's like, now do everything in this town. And which,
yeah, it feels very PS3 in that regard, actually. It feels like, I mean, it doesn't look PS3 in any way. It looks beautiful, but having these smaller, contained, open world areas that then you only use the world map to
be
get
honest,
around.
I find that a little bit palatable. Like I think that makes it a bit more of an enjoyable experience. However, if it continues doing this formulaic thing of being like, complete all these side quests before you do this thing, like, I'm gonna be annoyed if it's like every time we do that, it's like, okay, you have to complete all of these because you're going to be gone for the next 5 years, and so whatever side quest you were working on is gone for that time. Like, I want us to kind of stick in the time zone that we're in now, you know. But one thing that was really, really impressive to me was like, because I mean, I'm not gonna go as far to say like it's ham-fisted, but they're making very obvious points about racism and prejudice and slavery, like very, very, very obvious. Which, sure,
it's not
great.
It's
no,
not subtle. And we
not.
agree with all of the points that they're making too.
But
like,
it's not subtle. I feel like, I mean, maybe it's a product of the world being worse than I think it is. But I feel like everyone kind of agrees, you know, like racism, slavery, bad. But I know that that's not true.
But yes.
But like the people playing this game, I feel like are probably on that side. Maybe that's an overstatement as well, but there was a moment with the where we got back Ambrosia, our chocobo, and we were calling it, like, that's the other thing. I'll circle back to that. Too many thoughts, too many ideas. With Ambrosia and that whole side quest of getting her back, which seems like it was optional. Like, it seems like you can go through the game without getting her back. Like, it was a side quest. Maybe there's a timeline where you're forced to get her, but I'd be surprised.
I think it is something you need to do,
because like it was just it was a different green marking. It wasn't an exclamation point, but it was like different, and I was like, I'll do that.
It's such a big mechanic to get a mount, though.
That's what I'm saying. Like there must be somewhere down the line where you're forced to have her back, even if you didn't do that side quest. But we did all the side quests in that region, and then we did the Ambrosia side quest. And the whole, like, whenever we were talking to this man, I was like, oh my God, I would die for this man. He is so sweet. He is so wholesome. This is so wonderful. And then we found out through conversing with him that he was like, I thought I would recognize you. You know, I could have sworn, but he was a bearer. There was no way that was you. And Clive didn't admit to being a bearer because, you know, the scar at the time. But the man had been horrific to us. Absolutely horrific when we were a bearer. He was awful. Awful. And props to you for noticing that, because I didn't recognize that. But it just goes to show like that was one of the times where like the Final Fantasy was like really nuanced with making that point, and I was so impressed.
It's a level above the rest of the side quests for
Absolutely.
sure. And I think can be easily missed. I know I've heard a lot of complaints online that the side quests are very shallow. And
typically.
some of them have been. But you know, I think that there are some gems in there to look out for.
The ones in that whole region were more impressive than the rest.
I think that one was incredibly clever.
Yeah,
that
and one is the one that's going to.
It's very easily missed.
Yeah.
I think as well. I like, unless you remember the NPC interaction from maybe
from ages
7
ago.
or 8 hours prior. it's easy to miss that this guy has been really two-faced,
Yeah.
and like has treated you so
He
well.
treated bears horrifically, and then he
had-
was like the nicest person we'd ever met in the game.
It's really
when we
teaching
weren't.
something about privilege there, and
Yeah.
you know, because you are you at this point in the game you've got the
you're
marks
scarred
taken
instead of
off you, so he
bare.
doesn't recognize, and
That's it.
he treats you so well. He treats you like a lord. He treats you
Yeah.
with privilege, and then it brings you back to that moment earlier on.
No, I was so
I think
impressed
it's
by
pretty
that
clever,
one.
yeah.
That one
Yeah.
was the one where I was like, whoa, like someone in the side quest department was like, I've got a story to tell.
I was really waiting
liked
for
that.
them to get like then super obvious about it with Clive or something saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, but you treated me badly," and they
But
didn't.
it was subtle.
They actually left it up to the player,
Yeah.
to realize that this was.
Which I think that's one of the things the game could afford to do more of. I think at the moment they don't give the player enough credit for
Yeah.
what they'll clock, you know? And so, but generally in that time and map zone, wherever Martha's Rest is, that whole map area, I think those side quests were generally better. The racism is just abhorrent, and they make you walk through it, which I did think was clever.
Well, it's
but
every character too. It's every character.
But like,
is
sure,
the
that's
same.
how it was though. With
I
like,
get it.
you know,
No, I do get it. But
in,
it's
like,
like
colonial
it's the
times.
exact same tone and saying the exact same things.
yeah,
It
there's
just-
no
it
nuance
feels-
to the
it-
racism,
yeah, I mean, so
and
there's-
there would be, which is a good point. And that's not me actually being tongue in cheek there.
there was one other side quest that stands out to me is a side quest where you're looking for a child's toy.
Oh, yeah.
And you find out a number of different clues, and you talk to people, and they're like, "Oh, that dirty thing, I don't know where that is," and and then
toy
you
or the
find
pet?
out the toy. Pet.
Yes,
sorry.
it was a
It's
pet, not a
that they're
toy.
looking for,
Yeah.
not a toy. Oh, that dirty thing, I don't know where that's gone, and then eventually you find this dead child.
Yeah, little
and
girl, same
it's-
age as her.
this
She named her
living
Chloe.
child had a slave bearer, a
And she
child,
named her
and she had
Chloe,
just-
as she had named all of the other ones. And she was like, she said, you know, like, oh, I only made you do a little bit of magic. I don't know why you're
and now I have to get
stone
another
already.
one.
Yeah. No, that one was
And
good.
then Clive is like,
went
"Hey, you're-"
full in. He was
Yeah,
like,
it's
you
like-
little piece of shit. I was like, yeah.
I was like, "You're right. You're talking to a child like this, but okay."
But I'm happy with that though, because like I have to wonder if there had been the privilege of others back in the day, you know, and maybe this happened, you know,
Absolutely.
where like someone talked to a child and was like, cop the fuck on, basically, and then the child took that with them and was like, oh my god, this is evil, you know, like maybe that's giving too much credit to people raised in that kind of situation, but maybe it happened, and maybe it did change certain people. And so I was really glad that Clive wasn't like, oh, you're a child, I'm gonna save the nuance for your parents, the people I can't change, you know, like I thought that was good.
They're two really good moments, and they've kind of they kind of make everything else stand out, though, as being a little bit bland in its portrayal of racism, because it's like, you know, bears are third class. We hate bears. They're dirty, and it's like they're repeating the same thing over and over again. But every now and then, it's like obviously like a different team of writers or something,
or just writers that were like, someone got a little bit more to say in that writing session, you know, and like. There one of the complaints I will air about the game is that I would love to be in the writing room so that I could make things funnier. Like there are so many opportunities where the side quests could be just funny, you know? Like there's one, I think it's in that timeline, where there is a girl who's absolutely no, maybe it's one of the older timelines, but she's absolutely terrified, and she's like, there are thugs in the R&R, like they're in the B&B. Yeah.
Martha's Rest.
Yeah, they're in Martha's Rest. And she's like, they're really scary. I'm so terrified. I don't know what to do. They look so dangerous. And I wanted nothing more than it to just be like a group of halflings or someone massive. But it was just like two normal dudes that we beat up immediately.
Yeah,
you know? There's a couple times where
it was very plain.
Yeah,
it was like, oh, we've got these tugs, and then and there were tugs, and you beat the tugs,
Yeah.
and then
Like
everyone's safe. It's like,
been-
oh, well, that could have been.
There's been
more
so many
interesting.
times where like the the dialogue lead up is like, oh, there's opportunity here. This could be hilarious. And it's not been funny once.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's a departure for Final Fantasy, I think.
Yeah, like I think
Final Fantasy has always had
doesn't
these
take itself too
humorous
seriously.
sides. Yeah, so far I'm not seeing that in 16. And even remake 7, Final Fantasy 7 remake recently, I didn't think that they would do the whole Don Corneo zone as well, or Don Corneo.
I would never say that part is funny though.
Well,
I'd be like, this man's a
getting
predator.
Cloud's dress and all the dance moves and like that's hilarious. It's brilliant and it's so positive, but it's much more lighthearted than the rest of the game. That's been missing in 16, and there's plenty of examples in Final Fantasy 8, 9, 10, all of them. But this game so far doesn't have. There's no gold saucer, right? There's no place I can go to play video games in the video game.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought there was gonna be a moment. I don't remember where. Oh, when we met all the sex workers. I was sure that there was gonna be something like that we'd have to like pose as her like escort and do, you know. But it was just like, oh, Clive's just in the same outfit, looking gorgeous.
Yeah.
Just walking around with the madam.
I'm walking around with Jill.
Yeah.
Who doesn't say much. I'm
That's
hoping,
the other thing. So
I'm hoping she opens up. And gets more
I wanna do predictions, and then we're gonna be off. So what's your prediction? I mean, it could be Jill centered because that's when we think of it, or anything else.
My hope is that we actually find out a little bit of depth to Jill.
Me too.
So far,
I like her, but she's not been given a lot of time.
Her voice actress is really good.
She's strong.
The model, the character model is very cool. There's just no depth at the moment. My predictions, I don't really know where the game's going. I don't know the story that it wants to tell yet.
That's fair.
I have no idea.
I think that means we've got quite a lot of hours ahead of us.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's too early to make predictions. I
do you have like
Joshua,
hyper-specific ones?
I think Joshua and Clive are going to find
Reunite,
each other and party up at some point.
If they don't, I'll be furious.
I'm predicting a moment where Ifrit and the Phoenix
are fighting together.
Fight together.
Yeah.
Against
that
like
happen, against
really
like
disappointed
the
now.
Last icon or something.
There's going to be some sort of like back-to-back moment with Phoenix and Ifrit.
Yeah. So to the point of Joshua, I like my more like minute prediction is how Joshua's powers work. So I think like the Phoenix, I want to read a lot into that. I want to read a lot into like the rising from the ashes kind of stuff, but I haven't seen him enough in action to have that. However, I think because he just like shoots out power like the flick of a wrist and it's nothing to him at this point, I think his siphoning power, like the siphoning power that we've seen in Clive, I think that's just like times a billion with Joshua. And so the more that he uses his power, the stronger he is, because he was a little sickling, and it's because his mother forced him into this tiny box, this little protective thing where he couldn't do anything. And so when Joshua was a baby, when he could barely like light a fire, he could barely have that little like pendant fire. But now that he's been off and gallivanting, doing revolutionary shit just under the radar, I think that means that he's getting stronger every time he uses it, which is why I think it's probably reaches a point. But I think he's a phoenix, so I think it's probably like he reaches a point of maxing out his power, and then he like has to fucking bow out for a while and then rebirth.
Well, now that I think of it, my prediction or explanation at the moment for why he's more powerful now is I think he needed to die before coming back as the real Phoenix. Oh my god!
Yes, he's on his like first life cycle.
I think he was just a shadow of himself before he died.
That's an incredibly good point that I wasn't even thinking of. That he actually did die, and he's a fucking Phoenix.
He could only come back as the real Phoenix.
Right in the face. Oh my god! He literally did die.
Standing on the shoulders of giants here. Like I built on your prediction.
But that's like a revelation I hadn't had yet, which feels very silly. But so that's our long-winded short segment on Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about all the things that we're doing that are non-game related. Anything coming up for you? No. My life is games and absorbing stories and wanting to talk about them all the time. Yes. Well, same here. I'm traveling for the next 2 weeks for
Same.
work, and I have downloaded Divinity Original Sin onto my laptop, and I will probably not get around to
No,
this.
absolutely not. That's huge. That's such an undertaking to be like, I'll dabble in it over the next 2 weeks when I'm so busy.
I love the idea of being able to get around to that, but
I have no idea what game I'm going to take with me, actually. I haven't thought about that.
Watching Stranger Things.
We're leaving
again,
Saturday. Oh, yeah.
As a late to the
That feels
game
late
sort
to
of
the
idea.
game,
Yeah.
yeah.
But watching it again,
Yeah.
watching with the kids. They're 12 and 10, so it's
On the verge of it
I'm
not
watching
being
every
okay.
episode with my finger on the pause button. More worried about the sexy bits than the scary bits. You know?
At this point in time. Yeah. I mean, just let them cap out at season 1, I think.
Yeah, but it's good.
Yeah.
I realized I really did enjoy that first season.
It's good. It's really good. Yeah. Well, I think that's it for this episode. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching and or listening. And we would love to know what your toxic gaming traits are or your Final Fantasy predictions up to the point that we have talked about. Absolutely no spoilers or I will scream. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to join the community. It's going to be in the description linked below, wherever you are. And we look forward to getting to know you. But in the meantime, I'm Elementally. You can find me at Elementally, Element, ELLIE, and you can find Ned.
Ned Kelly Gamer, Ned Kelly GMR.
Perfect. And that's that. And we'll see you very, very soon. Or if you're binging these, we'll see you immediately.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.